because we've been working on it all semester. But it's number 33, and I got it wrong. It's about the quantitative reasoning process, which step they would use.
Okay, yeah.
It says which one would they pick, would they select, and I thought that would be during the informed decision part, but that was wrong, so.
Right, and honestly, when I read this one too, I was wavering a little bit on that as well.
Was it kind of worded a little tricky, or am I just way?
Yeah, it is worded a little tricky, and the key that I got from it was where it says, when would you expect them to pick this rate so that they can make some estimates?
Okay.
Right? And so it sounds like they need to pick this before they can make the estimates at all, which means they've got to do it sooner, right? And so what it ends up being is they're going to pick a rate during that identifying their key variables and key assumptions.
Okay, so they're not saying when are they selecting what they're choosing, their ultimate choice.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So I just wasn't reading that right. So that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Okay. So, anything else then in particular that you guys want to go over before I start looking at some of these that were mentioned in this discussion here?
What would be helpful to me, Sister Zollinger, is just kind of a general review of, okay, remember when you do probability, you do this, this, and this. Remember when you're doing the equations, you do this, this, and this. Part of it is I look at some of this stuff and it's like, oh my goodness, this was only last week. Did I really learn this and I've already forgotten it? So
right.
Just some cues to kind of simplify the process would be helpful to me.
Okay. I might have to think about that one for a little bit.
Okay.
But I think as we go and look at some of the specifics, we'll definitely come up with some of those things, more general things to look out for. So I think that'll help.
I'm still having problems. I know we went over this yesterday. I'm still having problems with the like question 14 where you are doing the I forgot what it's called because it's giving me too much of a headache.
Oh, the systems of equations.
The systems of equations. I know we went over it yesterday, and then I get to it, and I'm just like, oh.
Okay, yeah.
Because this one, for example, I have 4x minus 6y equals negative 40, and 9x minus 5y equals negative 5. And I was going to do elimination, so I thought, well, my best bet is to go with 30. So, times top one by negative 5, and then the bottom one by 6, positive 6. And I could not get an answer.
Let me pull out, I'm going to share just a whiteboard so that you can see the process as we work this out. But let me pull out a better tool to use so that I can actually write on the whiteboard and have it legible. You can read what I'm doing. So let me see if I can get this. Because writing with my mouse is not always a great thing. So I have a pen mouse that works much nicer for this kind of thing. Let me see if that's working here. Yeah, there we go. So let me share then a whiteboard here. Okay. So we had then, maybe that's gonna write. Let's try it. That still looks a little funky, sorry. Hopefully you can tell what I'm doing, writing this on here. So we've got.
It's actually a positive 4x.
Was it? Yeah, sorry, that was, ignore that. That's not a negative. 40, And then we have 9x minus 5y plus negative 5. Okay, and then you were multiplying up here. We were multiplying by the negative 5. And down here, we'll multiply by positive 6. And so on top, as we multiply that negative 5 through everything, negative 20x plus 30y will be equal to, that'll be positive 200. And then on bottom, we're going to get 54x minus 30y equal to negative 30. Is that what you were getting as you were doing that?
That's where I got to, and
Okay.
then I got stuck after this.
Awesome. Is everyone else following along our process that we're going with this?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. And so what's going to happen now, if I can get my mouse back over where I need it to be, is we are basically just adding these equations together right there, right? Which means this is going to cancel off right here. And that's nice to have that canceled off. And then what, we get 34x over here and 170 over here.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And last step, we just need to do that division. And so I gotta pull up a calculator here so I can. We've got 170 divided by the 34, x equals 5. Right there. That making sense?
Yep.
Oh, now it makes sense because you're doing it. I don't know. I just never got that at the end. I went, yeah, I don't know what I did. I must have done something. Okay, so x equals 5, and then we'll plug that back in, and then we'll
Yeah,
solve.
we'll plug that back in, and it shouldn't matter which equation you're putting that into. That should give you the y value right there.
Can you remind me why on your top equations, why you multiply one by negative and one by positive at the end, where
So
those are coming from?
I wanted these to cancel, right? I needed one to be a positive 30, one to be a negative 30. And in order for that to happen, one had to be a negative up here, one a positive. So it really just depends on what numbers you already have. Because they were both negative to start with, I had to do it that way. But sometimes you'll be multiplying by both positives or maybe both negatives. I don't think that usually happens, but it just depending on what you need in order for this canceling to happen with that.
Does it matter if you cancel the x or the y? I mean,
No, it really doesn't matter. And so I'll usually pick whichever one looks easiest to try and cancel. And so what you did there, picking the y's, that was probably a better choice. We had some smaller numbers we could get to with the 5 and the 6.
if everyone's okay, can we do another one? Like, I think question 15 is one too.
Question 15, okay.
Yeah, and Sister Zollinger, while you're doing that, so this is from lesson 11, where we're solving
Yes.
systems of equations. So just give a brief overview, the purpose and the real life application of how, and why you would use these. We want to solve for
Right.
X. We want to solve for X so that we can get for Y, and then we can potentially do graphs from this. But
Right.
help me remember, like, I guess the highlights.
So what you're really finding when you solve a system of equations, you're finding where do these lines cross, right? So if you remember doing this graphically, that's what you would find. We're finding where are the lines crossing, And so real life applications, there are some other problems later on where you have these word problems, you're setting things up. The one where it's asking about plan A, plan B with his commission, right? Which one's going to be more money? That's one. And so you find that point where these lines are crossed. Basically, in a situation like that, that would be telling you, okay, this is where these two plans are the same, right? And so if he sells this much in that month, then no matter what plan he's on, he would make the same amount of money. So when you solve that system of equations, that's what you're figuring out. Whereas that point where those two plans are equal, and then from there, you can usually figure out, well, okay, if he's selling more than this amount of money, he'll make, more than this amount, he'll make more money on one plan than the other. Or if he's selling less than that amount, then he'll make more money on the other plan. And so looking at it that way. And so that's one kind of situation. There are actually a whole bunch of others that we could get into.
Okay. And with this also then, X would be the input and Y would be the output when we're solving systems of equations, or no?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
And so kind of depends on what situation you're dealing with. And
Got
so
it.
when you do set up the problem with the commission and figuring out which plan is better, then yes, X is your input, Y would be the output. And that's the way we've set things up. With ones like these that we're doing where it just says, here's a system, solve it, we don't really know what's our input, what's our output. We're kind of looking at it more theoretically than applying it that way.
Can we go over number 10, the commission plan one?
Yes, definitely. So let's do number 15. We wanted one more of these first, and then we'll go back to number 10.
Yeah, especially number 15, because it's got some decimals in it, so this
Okay.
one.
Let me have you give me the numbers that you have on
So
you.
I have 4x minus 4y equals negative 23.2, and 8x minus 3y equals 3.1.
Okay.
Are we on the unit 3 review, or what are we doing?
Yeah,
We
this
are
is the unit 3 review. So give me
Mine's
those again.
different.
Sorry, I'll put them up here. So we had 4x
Minus 4y
minus 4y
equals negative 23.2,
3.2. Okay.
and then 8x minus 3y is equal to 3.1.
3.1. Okay. And so had you started this one?
I did attempt this one, and I'm not sure how far I got. Looking back, I attempted all of them several times. So actually when I attempted it, now I'm looking back, I actually went for the 12 with the 4 and the 3. But looking at it now, I should have just gone with the X, the 8 and the 4.
Right. That's probably our easiest way. We only have to multiply one. So if we go up here, I can multiply by a -2, and I know those X's will cancel out as I do that, right?
Right.
So 8x will be positive 8y. And I'm not sure what that one comes out. Let's take a look.
46.4.
Thank you. So, and that would be positive 46.4. And so we've got 8x minus 3y. 1. And now as we're adding these, there go our x's right there. And we have 5y and whatever this comes out.
49.5.
Yes, 49.5. And then we're dividing 49.5 divided by the 5 And we do end up with a decimal answer.
9.9, right?
That sounds right. Yeah, 9.9. And so a decimal answer, we had decimals in there. A decimal answer is not surprising to
Okay.
get out of one like this.
Okay, that was another question I had for you. So if just for example, there's a decimal in the equation, then don't be surprised if there's a decimal in the
Yeah,
answer.
exactly. And I would expect if you have decimals in the equation that the answers would have decimals as well. And the ones that I did, I made it through most of this review. The ones I did didn't have long decimals as the answers, usually just, I think, 1 or 2 decimal places. So if you are getting something really long as a decimal, maybe that's a sign something didn't go right. But I
So
did.
how do we, from here, how do we get X?
So from here, if I want X, I'm going to put this back into really either one of these equations that I started with, and it doesn't matter. And so maybe I'll use that bottom one, 8x minus 3, and we'll replace y with 9.9. And now I have an equation I can solve for x with.
Okay. That's what I figured, but this is just
Yeah.
different than what I studied. So I didn't study doing it this way. I studied doing it the other way.
The other way. And definitely you could do this using substitution instead. And especially where there are already decimals in here, you can just work with the decimals and that's just fine.
Yeah, Terry, I did that too. She taught me this yesterday, but this sometimes is just easier when you get really ugly fractions. It's just easier.
Okay.
And that was my problem, is I was just getting these really weird fractions and I just would get stuck.
Yeah.
So
All right. Let's see. I'm gonna stop this one and let's take a look at number 10, you said.
Yeah.
Was it? Let's see, that one's not the commission one, at least. Not
Oh,
that I'm
my review must be different than your guys'.
Yeah, it's possible it is. So
Oh.
mine is number 11, I guess, is the commission one. So let me just share what I have on my screen for this one.
okay.
It'll be easier to. Okay, and so we have Ernest in mine. I don't know who you guys have, but I've got Ernest, who is looking at these 2 different payment plans, right? And one of them, or Plan A, says he has a salary of $1,780 and he gets a 20% commission. And then Plan B, his salary is $2,265 and he gets a 6% commission. And so we want to use our system of equations to figure out basically which one's better in which situation from this, which means first off, we need our equations. And so I went over this with Liz yesterday, but for the rest of you, any ideas? How do we set this up?
So you'd have to have the salary plus the commission times X.
Yeah, very good. That's what we want to have. And so basically we'll have 2 equations in our slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, right? Where
Right.
that salary is going to be our y-intercept. So in one it's 1780, and then our slope is the commission, so 0.2, and we get an equation out of that, right? And
Right.
so I don't know if it's going to let me, no, it won't let me draw on that. That's too bad. So we have one equation from Plan A, one equation from Plan B. So our second equation, we have 0.06 as our slope, and then 2,265 as that y-intercept. And we have our system of equations.
Are you writing this? Can you show us what you're writing?
Yeah,
It's
so
great
let me
to
switch
see.
this back to my whiteboard so I can show you what,
Yeah,
what
that's
we've got
helpful.
with
That visual is helpful.
Yeah.
Plus, I think most of us have different numbers, so we really
Yeah,
need
exactly. It does give you different ones every time. So I've got two equations here. This was plan A, 20% commission, so 0.2 times X. And then his salary was 1780 for plan A. And then in the second one, he had just a 6% commission, and his salary was 2,265. And so really it gives you all those different options, but the best way to figure out which one is our best answer is to just solve this as a system of equations. Figure out, okay, where would these plans be equal, right? And so this one's set up nicely for substitution. Both already solved for y. And pretty simple as far as solving. We just set these equal to each other. Right. And then it's fairly simple from there to solve for x, which I'm gonna, let me see what answers I got.
I think every time you go back to the quiz and you do a question again, you get a different scenario, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, it is kind of nice, giving you a little bit extra practice and stuff with that, right?
Yep. It is good.
And so we end up with x out of this one right here is what I ended up with. And then y was this. And so what this tells us right here is that if he is selling this much, right? If this is the amount of his sales, then he will make the same amount of money on either plan. Okay, and that amount of money that he would make in the month is our y value right there, the 2,475. And so that's what these numbers are telling us.
Okay.
Right here. And so I'm going to go back. Let's see if we can go back to our question then right here.
So X is the total of his salary plus commission.
So X is actually his sales. How much?
His sales. Okay.
Sales. And then Y is his salary plus commission.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And so we've got some options here. And you notice those numbers in my options, those are the ones I came up with, right? The 3,000 here and then the 2,000 showing up in here. And so we need to decide which one's better. And so kind of as part of this, what I find is helpful, if you have a graphing calculator and graph these on there and can see this graphically, that really helps. Or we might have to try some test values in here. And so the option, let's see, we've got a few options. Okay, if his sales are more than this, one option says plan B is better, one option says plan A is better. If his sales are exactly that, then he earns the same amount of money with either plan, except the amount that they have right there isn't the right amount, and so that one's not actually a good answer. Otherwise, that would be a good answer, but it doesn't have the right amount in there. So, and then if his sales are that amount, then he'll earn the 2,475 with plan A, which is technically true, but he also earns that amount with plan B as well. And so these two aren't good answers because he's going to earn that with either plan, that amount. And so it does turn out that plan A is better if his sales are more than this 3,464.29. Like I say, graphically, I think is the easiest way, but you can check that out just by putting in an amount larger. So if you put in 5,000 for X in both equations, it will be obvious which one of those is giving him more money at that point.
Can we graph that using Excel if we don't have a graphing calculator?
It's a little hard in Excel. Excel doesn't do
Okay.
well for graphing. What I recommend instead is Desmos. And in fact, I don't know if this is the same one. Yeah, I think this is it. I graphed it earlier. Right there, right? You can just type those in, and here's my point, and those are my lines, right?
Okay, and is that
And
just
so you can see that
Desmos.com?
graphically. And
Yeah,
as far as I
okay.
know, using Desmos is okay on the test because it is a graphing
Mm-hmm.
calculator, essentially.
Okay.
So those are okay.
So there's another question that's a little bit, it's like this, but a little bit different. Where the, I think it's 35 on mine at least.
Let's take a look. Okay, and this is one I haven't actually answered. I had two of these that I didn't get to and haven't answered, so we can work this out. We've got, I've got Keenan anyway, who has, he makes ceramic pots and wooden bowls, and then it gives us his sales. If he sells 7 ceramic pots and 8 wooden bowls, or if he sells 5 ceramic pots and 7 wooden bowls. And so let me go back to my whiteboard and we'll take a look at setting this up right here. And so I'm gonna switch my screen so I can actually read the problem. And write it on my board over here. Okay, so setting this up, what's going to be our setup? So we had a few others in there. We have one with cupcakes and sheet cakes that's the same, and I think there's one more a little later.
So it would have to be like 6x plus 7n, because you don't want y. I don't know. Or 6, I got watercolor and oil, so I would do 6w plus 7o equals y as the profit, the total profit, right? For the first
So
one.
rather than equaling y in this one, we want to use the number it gives us. And so it gives me a profit.
Oh, yeah.
98,
Okay, yeah.
48. That's what, but you've got the right idea. So I'm going to use my numbers. I've got 7 ceramic plus 8 wooden, and his total profit was 598.48. Right, and then on his second one we have 5 ceramic and 7 wooden, and a profit of 484.88 out of this. And so he's trying to decide what he needs to focus on, ceramic or wooden pot bowls, what's going to give him the best profit, so that he can actually buy supplies and keep his business, right?
Okay.
And so really, again, just solving as a system of equations to get that point where they're crossing. Really similar where if you graph this, that's going to help quite a bit just to see where it's going. And I think we have kind of similar answers as far as what comes out of this. And so I'm assuming that one of these, my C or my W, will either be 44 or 64, and the other will probably be the 34, 48 once I get this finally worked out. And I really just need to identify which one was really the right answer, which one was really the price, the profit he makes on his ceramic ones, and which one's the profit on his wooden bowls.
Okay, I have no idea what you just said, so you're just gonna have to go through the, you're gonna have to show it to me. I'm sorry.
We need to solve it as a system, right? Same process that we've been doing.
I know, but it looks a little different and it just feels a little different, so I don't know.
It's really the same. It really is exactly the same as what we've done on all of these others. And it does give you a lot of system of equation problems in this review. And
So we're just going to combine basically the ceramic and the wooden and the total, and then solve for a W or solve for a C.
Yeah, exactly. So if I want to use substitution, I can solve for W, solve for C in either one of these. I don't know how nicely that works out, but we're going to have some decimals either way, right? And so let's say we want to solve for C up in this top equation.
Okay.
So let's do that. We'd have our 598.48 minus W. It's not going to be nice because I've got all these terrible numbers. But we'll divide that 7 out, and I am getting, let's see, 598.48. And so I may have some rounding errors this way, but we should be kind of close. I'll keep a few decimal places long there. And I'm probably going to use a decimal here as well, because I already have decimals in here. We'll go 9 there, and that's W. All right, so I've solved for C in my first equation. That means I want to plug this into my second equation here. And I will be honest, I probably would have used elimination still on this, but this is fine too. And good to review both ways, I think.
So, Sister Zollinger, when I couldn't do this, I just plugged the numbers in. I plugged the number in for cupcakes, and I plugged the number in on the cupcake one. You know, I plugged the number in for cupcakes, the dollar amount, and then to see if it worked, and then I plugged it in for sheet cakes to see if it worked, and did it that way, which is sort of a backwards way of doing it, but
that is just fine to do it that way.
It did work.
And so really, I know I'm fairly confident one of these is going to come out 4464. One's going to probably be the 3448.
Yeah, where they just have the same numbers.
Yet, but that's what I'm expecting to see as I solve this, because those are the numbers I have in my answer, right? And so that's just fine if you want to work backwards and go that way.
Do you think that's a better option to do on the test, to work backwards, to look at the answers?
Possibly. It may be quicker to do it that way. And so if you're worried about time, that may be a good way to go.
On ones like this where they're giving you the answers.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I mean, you can see that they're probably one of those numbers.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that's a smart way to work through things.
I did it that way through desperation, not through trying to be fast.
I know that feeling.
But we'll go ahead and work our way here. At least this will tell us which one is which. So there's that. 488 minus our 427. And I think I've done something wrong because that is coming out negative, and I don't think that should come out negative. Let's see. Huh. I am definitely getting a negative number out of that. Anyone else try this one?
I'm trying to, I got a positive. I
Okay,
got,
where am I ending up negative from this? Because if
I don't know if I got
subtract
that right.
that comes out positive. I divide by this negative, and I would end up negative there. I don't want to be negative. I shouldn't have a negative profit for that. So I know something is going wrong. I've clearly done something wrong on this. So.
7-1.
Make sure so
Five.
I did that. 5 by 7. Okay. Okay.
When you're taking when you get to that bottom line and you take the 484.88, then do you minus the 427?
Yes.
And then that's when you're getting the,
Yeah, because that's coming out positive, but then I'll be dividing by this negative number. And so I know I'm going to end up negative after I divide. So I keep thinking this number should be a bigger number than it is. I may have to go and do this the other way around because I've been doing elimination so much.
Let's do it. Let's do it by elimination then, because
Okay,
that'd
let's
be
try
interesting.
elimination. See if I can come up with a better answer doing it that way. Okay.
well, Sister Zollinger, we're glad that you're not perfect, that you're not.
Definitely not
We
perfect.
usually make it look so easy. It's like, oh my gosh, it's so easy when she does it. So it's good to know that we all struggle.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's try this with elimination. So I'm going to just try and eliminate my C's. That means I'll multiply by 5 up here, and we'll try a -7 down here. And so that will give us 35 plus. I forget my times tables. I'm doing the wrong ones there. Let me undo that. 5 times 8.
40. Yeah.
And I don't know what 5 times that is. Let's find out.
Oops.
A very large number over here. That's okay. Minus 49. And this one is negative. Okay. So now I add these, that's gone. We have negative, and that's okay this time because I will also be negative over here, whatever this one comes out to. Okay, so I am getting my W as the 4464, which is good because that was the answer that was showing up on my thing. So if W is that.
That was much easier and cleaner.
Yeah, this is why I prefer this method. It does come out easier, I think. And so let's take a look at our answers over here. So we know that the 4464 is his profit from the wooden bowls for one wooden bowl. And so this is accurate right here, but may not be his best way to go. I'm going to assume ceramic pots. He makes a profit of the 34.48. We didn't really figure that one out. And so I am thinking here where it says, okay, he should sell buy supplies for wooden bowls because every wooden bowl makes that profit of $44.64, and he's not making as much profit off of the ceramic pots, right? He's only making $34.48, and so he makes more money from the wooden bowls. Is that making sense? I know there's a lot of these, and so kind of evaluating those options at the end, but really it comes down to we're solving more systems of equations, right? And then using those answers.
And so in these, the last two examples, they have given us basically the y. You know,
Yes,
before we're doing the
exactly.
y equals mx plus b format, and they have given us all of the information and we just need to solve.
Right. And so
Okay.
truthfully, we could work this backwards, and that's okay to do it that way. And so once you get those equations, if you were to put in these numbers into those equations, you can tell which ones are going to work the right way around from there. And so if you do find you're at a time crunch, or if you've forgotten what you're doing or coming up with negatives like I was, and it's like, oh, that's clearly not it, then you're welcome to work backwards with things and try it that way.
What time, how much time do we have on the exam again?
You have 2 hours, I think it is,
Okay.
on the exam.
And there's 25 questions?
Yes, 25 questions. So I was going to look through here. What else did we have?
I had a question on, you know how you always put a 0 point before the numbers when you put them in your calculator?
Right.
Does
Yeah.
that 0 have to be there? I haven't been doing that. It seems to usually work, but I'm wondering if I'm going to mess myself up sometime.
As long as your calculator doesn't care if you put it, then it's fine. It should treat it the same way whether you have that 0 or not. And most calculators, it won't matter. You may end up with a picky calculator sometimes where it will insist on having that 0, but I think most of them now, it doesn't matter. You
Okay.
get the same.
I just wondered because I noticed everybody does it but me, and I'm thinking there might be some reason.
Yeah, and then I noticed you have the one about the exponentials and just putting them into Maple TA. The way Maple TA takes those exponentials, it's really weird. I agree, where you pull that equation. And so the format is, so if you have this equation, like the example you have here, we have that y equals 3.0358 e, and it's to the power 1.8993x. When you put that in Maple TA in their example form, the a part of that will be the 3.0358. Okay, that's your a.
Okay.
Then the exp is representing e in our equation, and so that's just replacing e. And then the bx is what it's raised to the power, and so the b would be the 1.8993, and then x is just x.
So how do you know what all those things are? They throw these things at you and you're going, what does that mean?
Yeah, I think, I don't know, honestly. I think for me, just because I've worked with different forms, and so I'm used to seeing them that way, and so it's easier to pick out. But yeah, for you guys, if you haven't seen it that way, that's definitely confusing, and I think it's such an odd way to have you guys enter them in, truthfully.
And see that E, I didn't realize that E is actually a number. I was
right, exactly,
tutored by somebody the other day, and he said, I have a brother-in-law who's a college math teacher, so I spent 3 hours with him a couple different times, and he said that E is actually this great big huge long number.
Yeah,
I just thought maybe it meant exponent. I didn't know it was a number, you know, so I was having a hard time because I wasn't putting it in my calculator.
Yeah.
So what is the order of operations when you're trying to do exponents with the E? Do you do the, not the exponents, the, am I saying that right?
Yeah.
So the raised to the power, that one.
Yes,
Did you-
exactly.
Do you raise it to the power of e first and then multiply to the number, or?
Yes, you do want to do it that way first because exponents come before multiplication. So you definitely
Oh,
want to
okay.
deal with that first. And so if we're like plugging a number into something like this with x, so say x was 5, I would really want to multiply my exponent first, 1.8993 times 5, and then I would do e raised to what that power, whatever it came out to, and then last of all, multiplying by the 3.0358.
Do we ever have to write that into Maple TA? I mean, it shouldn't ever be in an answer, should it?
I don't
This
think
is an actual question on the last test.
on the summary.
The summary sheet is on there, yes.
I don't
So I didn't know if it'd be on the test or not, but
Yeah, it shouldn't show up on the exam. I'm pretty sure you won't have any of these where it's asking you to find a trend line on the exam. But definitely on the summary assignment, this does show up.
yeah. So you have to know how to do it on the summary assignment.
Yeah.
The summary assignment. What's the summary assignment?
It's your very last Maple TA assignment, and so don't forget to do it.
Is it due this week or next
It
week?
is a required assignment, and so next week all you have is the optional final exam and you have the summary assignment. And
Yeah, I just wanted to do the final. I wanted to do the summary before the test, thinking it might help me remember and what.
yeah, and that's definitely a good
missing
idea
stuff.
because it goes back and it covers everything we've covered the whole semester. And your exam, the final exam, is
Everything.
comprehensive too. So if you decide to do the final exam, definitely do the summary assignment first. But even if you don't do the final exam, the summary assignment is required. So don't forget to do that.
So, so question 5, we do use that E. And could we go over that again just to be?
Yeah, let's look at that because that was one that was showing up here, 5. And I think we've done quite a few of these others. So let me switch over to question 5.
I think, and the one tutor online, the BYU tutor, he just said there's an E on your calculator. And so
Yes,
if you
there is
plug
an E
that,
on your calculator. At least there should be. I've found that my computer calculator does not have an E on there.
oh, and
Which is
mine has one. I
so
have to go to this. I have to go to the second function on mine, to get to it. But
Right,
it's there.
exactly. And that's pretty common that you'll see it that a lot of times it's grouped with the logs somewhere there, but my computer one doesn't have an E on it. So I usually use my phone. It has E. And it might be on my phone I do have E, which is just regular E, the number, and then I have E to the X power, which allows me to raise E to a power, and that's typically the one you'll want to use for these. And so,
Okay, so the trickiest part about this for me is the order of operations.
right, order
So
of
that's
operations.
what I wanted to go over again. I want to make sure that
Yeah.
what to do.
And so it gives you an equation here. It has our trend line and it gives you the equation for that. And so mine is saying estimate the temperature of the hot cocoa after 45 minutes. Okay, and so I've got this trend line. Temperature is going to be my output, so my Y value, and then number of minutes is my X value, my input value in this equation. So that's where I want to put that 45 minutes. I'm putting that in for X. And so order of operations does say, I'm putting this in, I want to do that negative 0.012 multiplied by my X, 45 minutes to start with. And so that's the first thing we'll want to work out. And so I am going to use my phone calculator this time because it has E on it. But if I do 0.012 negative times 45, I'm getting a negative 0.54 right there. And so it's going to be E to the negative 0.54 power. And that's my next step that I want to do. And so on my calculator, E, we want to do to the negative 0.54. And that's giving me a nice decimal. I've got 0.5827, and it goes on from there. Because E is like pi. It's this irrational number that goes on forever. And so really that number would go on forever.
And then you get that answer, and then you times it by the 171.46.
Exactly. Then I'm timesing by the 171. And so really in my calculator, I'm just leaving that 0.5827, the whole long decimal, and I'm just going to go times 171.46 and type that in. And that gives me, and so I have my answer in here already, 100. I rounded, it really gave me 99.918. And so rounding that up to the nearest degree would be 100 degrees.
Do you have an iPhone, Sister Z?
I do not. I have
Okay.
a Samsung, so.
Okay. I was going to have you show me how you exactly type it into your
Yeah, and I wish
phone,
I could
but I have
show
an
you on
iPhone.
my computer when lacking my E. I don't know why it doesn't have an E button on here. Like, do I have, maybe if I switch to something else, it's already on scientific.
I think Liz,
Yeah, I don't know.
Liz, I think on the order of operations, I don't know, did you ever learn that? Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So parentheses, exponents, P for
Yeah,
parentheses.
Yeah, it was just that the E throws you off on this one. That's what threw me
Yeah.
off on this one.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The E, there's a little E and there's a little X, and so I just had to make sure I did things in the right order.
Okay.
Right. Let's see. Like you say, I think we've done most of those. And I don't know why your graphs weren't showing up on that summary assignment. That's a little strange there.
I went to another system that says this isn't supported by Maple TA, and I thought, well, so what's going to happen if I do it on the test that way and I have to transfer back and forth? Just
yeah, and I don't think there should be any graphs
okay
on the test this time.
Yay.
But I don't know. We didn't have any show up in the review, right? There weren't any graphing questions there. So I don't think on this test you should.
There might be on the final, but none on this one.
Yeah. Because I think all your graphing was really in the last unit.
Hey, on the final, if you take the final test, are there those really awful story problems from like?
That's
I can't really guarantee what might show up on there. Because truthfully, it will basically randomly give you a selection of questions, I think, on the final. So
I still have nightmares about those stupid questions. I was just like, oh, that really hurt my brain.
Yeah. All right. Well, do you guys have any others you'd like to look at right now?
Let me check. Look at.
When you're finding the whatever that word is, ASYMPOT.
The asymptote.
What is it?
Asymptote.
Asymptote.
Yeah.
When you're finding that, do you have to graph it to find it, or can you find that without graphing it if you have an equation?
You should be able to find that from your equation.
So how do you do that?
And so I was going to see if I could.
There's a number 28 on the summary thing, but I don't
know.
know.
Go to that one. That might be easier to
have an actual
it with. Yeah.
There's the summary.
So let's see, number 28. Okay. So what we want to look at as far as your asymptote is we're looking at basically what is it going to approach without ever actually getting there. And so I'm going to remind myself just for a second which numbers tell me which, but we want to look at this number out here.
So that is and that one, isn't that when the Y
And so this one's different. In a lot of our others, that's our y-intercept.
It's not
But-
on here.
Yeah, it's not in here. So our y-intercept on our exponential, if I put 0 in for x, which y-intercept, x will always be 0 for the y-intercept. So if I put 0 in here, that means I have 2 to the 0 power, which gives me 1. And then I multiply that by a -2, so I end up with -2 minus 5. And so my y-intercept is actually at a -7 for this equation.
So, and why is it different here than it is in the other equations?
Just because we have that x in our exponent, really just kind of
It's
the
just
way
making it go up
affects
faster.
things differently. Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, it just affects things a little bit different. So our y-intercept would be at -7, which we can find just put 0 in for x. But then our asymptote would be that -5, I believe. Let me graph it and make sure I'm telling you the right thing. Let's put this in here. So here's our equation. What did we have? -2 times 2x. Okay. Parentheses up there. And, zoom in. Wrong direction. Let's zoom in a little and take a look at it a little closer here. I had that really zoomed out for the others. And so here you're seeing that. And so that -5, and this one is going down from the -5 this way, right? But that's that line. And so it looks like it's right on -5, but if we keep zooming in here at -5, you'll see that line never makes it there, right? And that's what our asymptote is. And so that's what you want to look at to find out.
Is it always going to be that last number then?
Always going to be that last number. If you don't have a number, so if nothing's added on or subtracted there, it's just a 0.
Oh. So on the exponential, okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
So the answers, I thought you said was -7. You solve and it's
So
-7.
-7, that would be the y-intercept. Is
The
big.
y-intercept. So,
Yeah,
and
the
that's what
answer
they're
for
asking.
this one asking for the horizontal asymptote would
Oh.
be y equals -5 is what I would put in there.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, she was just saying that because I thought that -5 was the y-intercept, so she was explaining that it wasn't,
Okay.
and how to find the y-intercept if we ever had to.
Yeah, and which you did sometimes. I know when you did this section, that unit, it did sometimes have you find y-intercepts of these exponentials. And so kind of good to know.
Yeah. I feel like I've learned a lot. It's wonderful.
Fantastic. If you guys don't have any other questions right now, we'll probably end this here. And if you think of some more, feel free to post them on that board, and I'll try and get back to those and help you out with them. And good luck on the test.
Thank you.
You'll all do great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. Have a great week, you guys.
Thanks.
You too.